Is today on the magnificent Grand Prix circuit here at Donington Park, one of the best known circuits in the country, and with good reason. It is one of the most exciting circuits to drive. It's a great place to come and watch racing, and it's the second time this year the drivers in the Porsche Sprint Challenge have had the pleasure of enjoying this venue, because they were here in August on the British GT package, but they were racing on that day in slightly grey and damp and miserable conditions. The racing wasn't miserable, it was very good actually. Plenty going on across the two 25-minute races. We were hoping that now in dry conditions they'll be able to stretch their legs a bit more, and of course all of the drivers getting more and more used to the cars as the year goes on too, and as they get more confident we are seeing more and more side-to-side racing as well. Well, here is how the grid lines up. Ethan Hawkey has pole position overall and within the pro class after yesterday's qualifying session, with Tom Jackson alongside him in the Rob Boston racing car. Archie Hamilton and James Dorlin, the championship leader, on row number 2. Dorlin's qualifying hasn't been exemplary this year. He's left himself with work to do again, whilst Theo Edgerton is 5th, and then 6th for Ambrogio Perfetti, the first of the AM drivers. Sarah Moore makes her debut in the championship for Into Racing in the car previously raced by Alex Toft-Jones, whilst Mike Price is the second highest placed AM driver, 8th on the grid. Row number 5 for Nigel Rice for Redline and Ian Humphries for Luger, AM drivers, the pair of them. And then on the 6th row of the grid, Chris Carp and Carl Cavers are together. Again, another pair of AM drivers. Back row of the grid sees John Westbrook and Pete Chambers for the Jordan Racing team, rounding out the 14-car grid. Well, as I said, this is the first of 2 races this weekend, but last time we were at Donington Park, Tom Jackson and James Dorlin shared the race wins. They had a first and a second place each across the 2 races. And then they went to Brands Hatch a couple of weeks later for their next couple of rounds, where again Jackson won the first race and Dorlin won in race 2. However, Dorlin had a 4th place finish in that first race at Brands Hatch, whilst Tom Jackson was able to get a win and a 2nd place, meaning the championship gap has come right down. Only 2 points now separate James Dorlin and Tom Jackson, and Jackson has out-qualified Dorlin again today. So it could be that we have a change of championship lead. For the first time this year, James Dorlin has led the championship ever since it began back at Snetterton earlier on in the year. In August, he was a double race winner at Snetterton, having started from pole position as well. Maximum points haul, pretty much at least, for James Dorlin at Snetterton. Then Donington Park, as I said, a 2nd and a 1st. It was really that 4th place at Brands Hatch which has hurt him and has left him having to now really defend his championship lead. In the AM category, Ambrogio Perfetti has a slightly more comfortable margin, it's got to be said. 2nd place in the championship is Ian Humphries, but he's quite a few points further back. Ian Humphries, well, actually, I say that, only 4 points further back, but given how close the competition has been this year, that's actually quite a comfortable championship margin. So Ian Humphries will be looking to try and beat Perfetti if he can today, but Ambrogio was very much the pace setter here at Donington earlier on in the year, so expect him to be gunning for more race victories today. And of course Perfetti is the pole sitter in the AM class as well. So back of the grid, Pete Chambers, the number 5 car, will line up in position, and then we should be good to go racing. 25 minutes is the length of the race here for round number 7 of the Cayman Islands Porsche Sprint Challenge Great Britain, and it is Ethan Hawkey and Tom Jackson on the front row of the grid together then. But watch for James Dorlin, the championship leader, starting 4th in the silver and black car. Needs to try and beat Tom Jackson if he can to retain his championship lead. It's going to be an interesting 25 minutes of racing then, which is about to get underway. The revs starting to rise, the red lights go on, they go out now and away they go. It's a good start made by the pole sitter by the looks of it, although Tom Jackson in the 2nd phase of the start does pull himself fully alongside, and then here comes Archie Hamilton. They're 3 wide for the race lead. It's going to be Jackson that gets the advantage. Hamilton 2nd, all around the outside, trying to take 3rd place away from the pole sitter, but he's in the gravel trap, and James Dorlin could lose a place here. I think he has. It looks as though Theo Edgerton has gone through into 4th place, and James Dorlin, despite making a good start, has now left himself even further down the pack than he was originally. Down through the old hairpin he goes. He immediately tries to attack the 54 of Theo Edgerton coming out of the turn, They run wheel to wheel through Starkey's, up through Schwant's curve, and Dorlin, I think, should get through. He's got the inside line from McLean's. He should be able to get back into 4th position, but that was not the way the race was supposed to start. It's Ambrogio Perfetti who is 6th and leading the AM category, and actually doing his best to go with them at the moment as they make their way towards Coppice Corner. So great start then for Tom Jackson. Initial reaction times between him and Ethan Hawkey were pretty equal, but the second phase of the start was brilliant. No wheel spin at all for Tom Jackson, and he is scooting away now then already from Archie Hamilton in second position. Hamilton is 3rd in the championship, but didn't race at Brands Hatch last time out, and so 4th in the championship, excuse me. As a result, he's not really in championship contention. Dorlin now attacking for 3rd place already, trying to get back ahead of the pole sitter Ethan Hawkey. Can't do it to the outside through the Melbourne hairpin though. And these GT4 Porsche Caymans, all very evenly matched, of course, run by different teams, but all built to the same set of regulations, so the competition should be close. That's going to make Dorlin's job a little bit harder, though. There's no speed advantage in the car. He's going to have to work hard to get past Ethan Hawkey here. Ethan has yet to win a race this year, and this was his first pole position of the year, too. Ethan, in fact, has only had one podium finish at Brands Hatch last time out, but that was James Dorlin knocking him out of the podium places and almost knocking him off the track. They were very close to contact there as they went into Redgate Corner, but Dorlin has made it stick. So James Dorlin back into 3rd place then. So now he is 1 place higher than he started. Trouble is that the race leader Tom Jackson is already a 2nd clear of Archie Hamilton, who was over a 2nd ahead of Dorlin and Hawkey at the start of the lap. So it's going to be tough for Dorlin, even over a 25-minute race, to catch this man, I think, Tom Jackson, who is really coming on song as we get into the second half of the season now. Towards Coppice again, things just settling down a little bit. There goes the 54 car of Theo Edgerton in 5th position. Just trying to stay with them, but very much staying with them is Ambrogio Perfetti there. The red and black car, the Chupa Chups car, is every bit as quick, it would seem, as the AM cars immediately in front of him. Sorry, the Pro cars, excuse me, immediately in front of him. He's getting away from Nigel Rice by nearly, well, over 2 seconds, I'd say now. The gap back to the 2nd placed AM driver. Sarah Moore, you can see on the left-hand side of your screen, is sort of buried within the AM group, but Sarah is making her first appearance in the championship. She's not driven the car before, so very much a learning weekend for Sarah, who we may see back again, I believe, later in the year as well. There she is, look, the red and white car in the background. As the 2nd place battle heads into Redgate Corner for the 3rd time. And James Dorlin sets the fastest lap, 1:35.0, fractionally quicker than the race leader, but he was over a 2nd quicker than Archie Hamilton in 2nd place. So that's why he's been able to reel in the black and gold car running in P2. He's bringing Hawkey with him. And Edgerton not far back either, so this is at least a 3-way fight for 2nd. It will soon be a 4-way fight, I think, if they start delaying each other and allowing Edgerton to close the gap. So who makes the first move? That's the next question. Will it be Dorlin? Will it be Hawkey? Dorlin really would like Ethan Hawkey to just leave him alone for a minute and focus on attacking the cars in front. Some nice battles going on here back in the AM category, though. Number 22 there, Carl Cavers, turns into Coppice Corner with John Westbrook right behind him. Cavers had his first class podium last time out at Brands Hatch, but he's not running in a podium place now, and he's going to lose another place here, I think. Look, Westbrook is going to get his nose in front as they go into the chicane. He's later on the brakes, and John Westbrook... Oh, no, he goes off, though. Oh, John Westbrook, he made the move stick, but they got it all wrong under braking, and the Rob Boston racing car is in the barriers. Now, thankfully, they have the Rectacell foam barriers there up against the tyre wall behind, so it should not do too much damage to the car. Gives the thumbs up to the marshals, which the driver has to do now, because the marshals are not allowed to approach the car unless it is absolutely necessary because of social distancing rules. So the driver, first thing they have to do after they've had an accident is give the thumbs up signal to the marshals track side, which he did, so he's okay, but the car is in a dangerous position, so I wouldn't be surprised if we see a safety car here, which would undo all of the hard work Tom Jackson has done in the early part of the race. There is Westbrook out of the car. Hopefully get a replay of that, because he made the move stick, and it looked as, here we go, look, so it looks as though he brakes way later than Cavers, but I assume that was Cavers letting him through. it might be. Yeah, Westbrook missed his braking point completely, goes through the gravel, he's lost control already, skates back across the track and bang into the barriers. Not too much damage done actually, but the car is buried and stranded. Now they can send live snatch vehicles out to pick cars up from certain places, but whether that is one of them, I don't know. The leaders coming through there under double waved yellows. I suppose they may choose to leave the car there, but the general rule of thumb is that if one car can go off there, then so could another. Either way, for now, the race is continuing, so it's Archie Hamilton in second place, who is coming under some serious scrutiny now from James Dorlin and Ethan Hawkey and Theo Edgerton, all four of them nose to tail. And as they continue to battle, they continue to lose time to Tom Jackson, who is now 2.25 seconds clear, having just set another fastest lap, 1:34.936. This time around, he is, well, a full 3/4 of a second slower than that, actually, and loses 1/10 of a second to Hamilton in second. It might be that Jackson, as the leader, slowed down a bit more for that yellow flag than the others did. It's always a bit of a grey area, that, as to exactly how much you're supposed to back off when you come across a yellow flag. And with the leader being the first one to see the yellows often, it's kind of down to them to set the pace. So may well be that's where he lost his time. Certainly in the first sector this time, he's fractionally quicker than Hamilton again. So I don't think this is the start of a problem for Jackson, but he did see his lead come down ever so slightly. Doesn't really look as though James Dorlin could do a huge amount here about Archie Hamilton, does it? He's kind of stagnated now behind him, and if anything, he's coming under more pressure from Hawkey than he is able to apply to Hamilton in front. Now, these are long races, 25 minutes the duration, so tyre management is a bit of a factor, and Dorlin, we've seen on a number of occasions this year, has come on stronger in the second half of the races than the first. So it might just be that James is pacing himself here. James, of course, raced in British GT last year very successfully with Tolman Motorsport in a GT4 McLaren, and has made the switch now to a different kind of GT4 machinery, different manufacturer, with the Porsche Cayman. But that GT experience from last year will no doubt have taught him quite a lot about car management, especially tyre management over a long stint. Although 25 minutes is not a long stint by any stretch of the imagination, it is enough for the tyres to feel the pressure, you would feel. Sarah Morbaker has got herself ahead of Nigel Rice now, so only one of the AM drivers in front of her. Rice still second, but under pressure from Ian Humphries. They're the two white cars coming towards us. And Humphries trying to jump into second place if he can. And then it is Pete Chambers in the Farrell Estates Racing car. Pete Chambers third in the AM category. Has been on the podium each of the last three races, actually. He won the second race here at Donington Park in August. Then he had a third and a second at Brands Hatch. But it looks as though fourth place might be as good as it gets for the time being in this first race of the day. It's the front-running pro contenders once again head out of Coppice Corner, and oh, look at Ethan Hawkey all over the rear bumper now. James Dorlin, he might have a go here into the chicane if those yellow flags have gone in. I'm not sure if they have. He elects not to for one reason or another. No, the yellow flags are very much still out because they've got the live snatch vehicle there to pick up the stricken car of John Westbrook. So that let James Dorlin off the hook a little bit there, because not only was Hawkey not able to go through, but also it meant that Dorlin knew he didn't have to defend into the chicane. He could take the ideal racing line. That means he didn't lose any time on the exit either. So James Dorlin driving clever here. I do wonder if he could get past Archie Hamilton. Could he chase down Tom Jackson, the race leader? The lead gap is 2.3 seconds now between Jackson and Hamilton, but then Hamilton, Dorlin, Hawkey and Edgerton are separated by only a fraction over 1 second. So those four absolutely nose to tail. Roger Perfetti has now faded in 6th position, but is still comfortably leading the AM categories, 2.8 seconds ahead of Sarah Moore, who is not an AM driver. She is 3.5 seconds ahead of Nigel Rice, so it's about a 6.3 second cushion essentially that Perfetti has over his nearest AM rivals. But Perfetti had an absolute shocker at Brands Hatch last time. Started on pole position, but then didn't finish the first race, and that meant he didn't start race number 2. The same was true of Mike Price as well, actually. So, yeah, they both unfortunately suffered from their dramas, and that is the only reason really that Ian Humphries is 4 points behind Ambrogio Perfetti, because Humphries won the first race, but then he too had a non-finish. It was a bit of a race of attrition, or a weekend of attrition at Snetterton, at Brands Hatch for the AM category. All of the pro drivers finished both races, but the AMs were falling by the wayside a little bit. So back up towards the final corner they go. We're into the second half of the race now, and everybody kind of minding their P's and Q's here, aren't they? No one's really taking a massive swipe at the car in front of them, but Dorlin again, for the second time in the last few laps, has dropped away from Archie Hamilton, noticeably as well. That gap is now nearly a second, so Dorlin, yeah, lost most of that time in the final sector, so maybe he's just not got that car working through the tight corners. It seems to be okay through the first two sectors, which are the sort of more high-speed sweeping sections of the track, but through that Grand Prix loop where it's a bit more stop-start, he does seem to be losing ground. You can see here he's getting away from Hawkey again now through the first part of the lap, but that gap may come back down. Now, is this Dorlin going slower than Hamilton, or is this Hamilton going quicker? Well, Hamilton just set a personal best, which was 2/10 faster than the leader, so I think it's a bit of both, actually. I think Dorlin's getting slower and Hamilton is getting quicker. That's why that gap is really growing. The question will be, as off goes Ethan Hawkey, runs wide out of Coppice corner. That's going to lose him momentum now. Is it enough for Theo Edgerton to go through? Edgerton looks to the inside. He's being blocked. He finds a gap though, and Theo Edgerton was not going to take no for an answer there. He rattles over the curbs a bit, but he is through into fourth place. So opportunistic stuff there for Theo. When you've been running around in a train like this for the majority of the race with no overtaking going on, you can't really afford to pass up on a clear opportunity to take advantage of a mistake there. So Ethan will be kicking himself now. Here Edgerton goes through. Here's the replay, just understeers out wide. Is that a sign maybe that tyre wear is starting to come into play, I wonder? Edgerton there really committed then onto the brakes, and it was a bit of a block pass, but that is the way to do it there really. You don't want to be running side by side through the chicane because you're going to lose your momentum on the exit of the corner. So Theo Edgerton, the TCR driver, Total Control Racing, and he moves ahead of the Redline Racing car of Ethan Hawkey. Redline Racing second in the teams championship. It's In2 Racing who are doing the best out of that though, because that is the team that James Dorlin races for, also that Sarah Moore and previously Alex Toft-Jones were competing for, and Ambrogio Perfetti as well in the AM category. So In2 Racing running a number of different drivers across the season in the Porsche Sprint Challenge GB. And Redline, a very experienced Porsche and GT team anyway. Rob Boston Racing, also a very experienced team, and they are running the car that's leading the way, but that gap is continuing to come down. It came down by another 4.5 tenths that time. So Archie Hamilton only 1.6 seconds back as he drops into the braking zone at Melbourne. There is Hamilton, very well presented car that, the Redline Racing car. Archie, who in the first 4 races of the year, the 4 races in which he's competed, he's never been off the podium. He's finished third, in fact, in every race this year. 2 third places at Snetterton, 2 third places at Donington. Then he didn't race at Brands Hatch last time. At least it looks as though he's going to beat that third place that has become his regular finishing position, although James Dorlin is starting to retaliate a bit now. James Dorlin was not quite as quick as Hamilton, but he is getting away now from Edgerton and Hawkey with their scrapping that's going on. Still Perfetti leads in AM ahead of Sarah Moore 7th, and then Nigel Rice looks still second in the AM category. So the 2 white cars of Rice and Ian Humphries have stayed very close together, but stayed ultimately in the same positions. Nigel Rice, the number 15 car, second in AM, yet to win a race, and he actually has had a very similar season to that of Archie Hamilton in the pro class. 4 third place finishes across the first 4 races, but then slipped a bit at Brands Hatch with a 4th and a non-finish, did Nigel. And Rice now trying to get back into a podium place and going one better here with 2nd place at the moment. Theo Edgerton here, having got ahead of Ethan Hawkey, is starting to gap, the youngster now. 7/10 was the gap at the start of the lap, but on this lap alone, well, actually no, Hawkey, according to the sector times, has been quicker on this lap, so it must have been the gap went up on the previous lap, and now maybe Hawkey is starting to retaliate. He'll have got the dirt off his tyres after his grassy moment at Cobbles. He's just going to be starting to wind up again now for another attack on Theo in front. So, fastest lap still belongs to Tom Jackson, but he was a 10th slower than Hamilton that time around, as the second place battle in Am continues, with Nigel Rice and Ian Humphries second and third place, as close as ever they have been, but just no real sign of an overtake, it would appear. Out of the first corner, very wide there for Humphries in the 27. Mike Price is still fourth, by the way, in Am, ahead of Pete Chambers, Chris Carr, Carl Cavers, of course, John Westbrook out of the race. So it's been a fairly static race in Am, actually. It's close battling, but no one really making any huge manoeuvres up the order. And the overall lead gap came down by only half a tenth that time, so still a second and a half in hand for Tom Jackson. Very late on the brakes for Humphries there through McLean's. That was good, actually, though. Didn't seem to lose too much speed on the exit of the corner. He's right with Nigel Rice now. Has a look to the inside into McLean's. He's not close enough. He's starting to ask all of the right questions now of Nigel. The hope being that if he can't force his way through, maybe he can force a mistake out of Nigel. And maybe that could be his route through to second position. Nigel, though, will be well and truly fed up of finishing third this year, you would think. So he's not going to want to give this second place up without a considerable fight. Gets the gap back out again, though, with a good run out of the chicane and through the Melbourne hairpin. Nigel's going to be able to do anything about this into the final turn. Noses dip quite significantly there as they hit the brakes. Great things about GT cars, especially these sort of GT4 based cars, the more production based cars, they do move around quite a lot. You can really see the attitude of the cars then as they hit the brakes. The nose drops to the ground and then sort of squats down again coming off the corner. Lap times between these two extremely equal. Nigel Rice on the previous lap did a 1:37.111. And it was 1:37.101 for Ian Humphries. So Humphries was quicker, but by just 1/100th of a second. So we're on to the 12th lap now of the race. 6 minutes and 20 seconds still to go. And again, that lead gap fairly static. It's going down by 1/10 of a second per lap now, but no more than that. James Dorlin on the previous lap was actually quicker than both of the leaders, so this kind of backs up my point that maybe Dorlin has been pacing himself in the first half of the race, or maybe they've adjusted the setup to be more of a race setup than a qualifying setup, if you like. If you start the car with slightly lower tyre pressures, slightly less camber, sometimes you can look after the tyres better. It means that you aren't as quick in the early stages, but you can sometimes come on strong at the end. Let's see what the lap times are this time then. 12 laps in the book. Jackson does a 1:35.4. That is 4/10 quicker now than Hamilton in second, who does a 35.8. It's a 35.6 for Dorlin, 35.3 for Edgerton, and a 35.7 for Hawkey. So the fastest that time in the leading five was Edgerton, actually, in fourth position. Ambrogio Perfetti is still leading in the AM category, and this is going to extend his margin over Humphries, especially if Ian Humphries can't get past Nigel Rice before the end of the race. The Perfetti family, the family behind the Chupa Chups company, which is why the car is covered in lollipops, and another very well turned out car this. Perfetti, of course, a driver with a decent amount of experience these days, and his brother Daniele Perfetti, former British GT star. Perfetti family with racing in the blood, and they've made their money elsewhere, and they enjoy spending it on driving racing cars. Not a bad way to live your life, I suppose. And Ambrogio Perfetti is proving to be quite considerably quicker, really, than everyone else in the AM category. Not really quick enough to be classified as a pro yet. He's sort of a silver driver, if you will, but be interesting to see what he chooses to do next season and beyond. It may well be that we see another Perfetti name in British GT in the future. Leaders have come back through to complete another lap. This time the fastest of the leading five was Ethan Hawkey, who set a personal best lap there, 1:35.250. A few of the AM drivers have also been setting personal bests in the last lap or so that shows that the tyres are definitely hanging on well. Michelin controlled tyres, so no different compounds, no different tyre manufacturers. It's the same for everybody. These 3.8 litre 6-cylinder engines produce about 425 brake horsepower, and of course they are mid-engine, which is a real break from tradition for Porsche, whose philosophy always was that you stick all of the weight over the rear axle, gives you great traction off the corners, great acceleration, but the mid-engine car kind of gives you the best of both worlds, I suppose. I imagine it's quite a quirky thing to get used to, especially if you've raced other kinds of Porsches in the past. One or two of these drivers, particularly in the AM class, most definitely have. So Edgerton then now coming under renewed pressure from Hawkey, and Dorlin has now reeled in Archie Hamilton. I think Archie's maybe taken too much out of his tyres in the middle phase of the race, and that as he sort of pushed after Tom Jackson and tried to reel him in, and was successfully reeling him in for a while. I think that maybe has just taken the best of the life out of those Michelins, and yeah, that time around he's half a second slower than the race leader, so Archie Hamilton started to struggle maybe, so Dorlin might still have an opportunity here with a couple of laps to go to move up an extra position on the podium, and I definitely think that Ethan Hawkey's got the potential to get back ahead of Theo Edgerton, who of course got past Hawkey before, but only because Hawkey made a mistake at Copper's Corner. At least that's what Hawkey will say. Definitely looks a bit quicker at this stage of the race. You can see him working away hard at the wheel through the old hairpin. Brilliant camera work there down at the bottom end of the track. Really get right into the driver's cockpits. See the physical nature of driving a racing car. It sometimes gets lost on the viewer, I think, from the outside, but the G-forces, the energy, the temperature inside the cars, it's very hard work muscling one of these quite heavy GT cars around the track. And, well, Theo Edgerton doing a very good job at the moment of fending off Ethan Hawkey, but Hawkey is not going to give up here. One more lap to go at the end of this one. Don't think they're going to catch Tom Jackson, but second, third, fourth and fifth have been pretty much together all race long, really. Out of Melbourne, back up the hill again, and towards the final turn. And then head across the start-finish line down the Wheatcroft Straight and onto the final lap of the race. Tom Jackson looking good for another race victory here. Still, this amazing run. He's only been off the podium once so far this season, number 10 car. That was the very first race of the year at Snetterton, where he finished fourth. But when your worst result of the year has been a fourth place, you're not doing badly. The trouble is that's exactly the same record that James Dorlin has. James has also only been off the podium once. That was a fourth place finish at Brands Hatch. But James has 2 more race victories than Tom Jackson. Well, not anymore, because Tom is only about half a lap away now from taking his third win, and with it the championship lead, with Dorlin all the way down in third place. So James Dorlin is going to have to try and hope that race 2 goes a little bit better, although it's worth mentioning that last time at Donington in August, Jackson won the first race and Dorlin won the second, but Dorlin did at least manage to finish second place in that opener, so 1 place further back this time. There is the number 32 Into racing car, third position. Oh, someone's caught the wrapper on that tyre stack on the apex of the chicane. That's definitely going to be a distraction for the drivers, but nothing more than that. It's not actually dislodged any of the tyres inside. Tom Jackson, though, has driven faultlessly in this one. He's coming out of the final corner now. He's about to see the checkered flag, and Tom Jackson for the third time in 2020 is a race winner in the Cayman Islands Porsche Sprint Challenge Great Britain. Second place goes to Archie Hamilton, third James Dorling, fourth for Theo Edgerton, and fifth for Ethan Hawkey. And here, Ambrogio Perfetti is going to come home in sixth position and looks as though he's going to take a fourth win for the year in the AM category, which indeed he does. A dominant victory in the end. The car behind him is Sarah Moore, who is a pro driver, finishing a little bit further down the order than she would be happy with. Nigel Rice, I think, is going to hang on to second place in the AM category. Yes, he does. Ian Humphries third, and rounds out the podium places. Tom Jackson then race winner again in the Cayman Islands Porsche Sprint Challenge Great Britain, and he will take home 20 points for the race victory, and 10 points, excuse me, within his class for the race victory. And he also, of course, got the fastest lap in that race too, although unfortunately for him that's not actually worth a bonus point. Pole position is worth a bonus point in this category, but fastest lap is not. So Tom Jackson still takes a good points haul and takes over the championship lead from James Dorling. We're only 2 points apart coming into this first race of the day, but they do have another one coming up later on this afternoon. A chance maybe for Dorling to fight back. About 20 to 5 we'll have our second Cayman Islands Porsche Sprint Challenge GB race of the weekend. Jackson then the winner, Hamilton second, Dorling third, Edgerton fourth, and Ethan Hawkey rounds out the top five. Then it's Ambrogio Perfetti in sixth position to win the AM category, ahead of Sarah Moore, and then Nigel Rice and Ian Humphries second and third respectively in AM. And then it's Mike Price, Pete Chambers, Chris Carr and Carl Cavers, the last of the finishers, whilst John Westbrook was out of the race with that spin into the barriers at the chicane. Hopefully Carr not too badly damaged, though we should see John back out again in the race later on. So that is our first race of the day complete, and we now will check out some of the highlights. It all really happened at the start of the race. The pole sitter did not get a great start, and so around the outside went Tom Jackson from second on the grid to take the lead. Archie Hamilton slotted into second, and James Dorling tried the outside line against Ethan Hawkey, ended up with two wheels in the dirt, and in the end Theo Edgerton was able to go past him as well. As they dropped back down into the old hairpin, Edgerton was on the attack, trying to get past Hawkey, ran a bit wide though, and Dorling got a better exit from the corner, and Dorling was able to get back into fourth position. He then immediately set off after Ethan Hawkey, the pole sitter, who was a little off the pace at the start of the race, made a really nice move into turn one. They just avoided contact, but Dorling was able to move back into a podium position. In AM, John Westbrook had just made up a position before he lost control through the chicane and ended up putting the car into the barriers. No safety car was required though. The race carried on, and there was a mistake for Ethan Hawkey going out of Coppice Corner, ran onto the grass, and Theo Edgerton was not going to let him get away with that. He dived to the inside into the chicane and managed to get through into fourth position. Meanwhile, at the front of the field, Tom Jackson was pulling away, took the race victory, his third of the year, to take the championship lead, whilst Ambrogio Perfetti was the race winner in the AM category. Another dominant victory for him to further extend his championship lead. Well, a very entertaining first race of the day for the Cayman Islands Porsche Sprint Challenge Great Britain. Race number 2 will be coming up later on. Can Jackson extend his newly acquired points lead, or will James Dorling be able to fight back? Join us later to find out.